the 25th of June. It was a peaceful day on Minecraft. I logged into Hypixel Skyblock and everything seemed normal. The beggars were begging, the scammers were scamming, and the grinders were complaining about the previous two. Business as usual. But then I logged into my profile and I was met with this. My island that I had been working on for weeks, that many fellow players had donated money to help fund, that was on the leaderboards for the most visited islands, had been destroyed. Anger, confusion, frustration, sadness, all these emotions flowed through me at once, but there was one that trumped them all. Determination. I needed to find out who did this, and I needed to know why. But in order to do that, we need to take a step back and first explain how the island works. On a normal Minecraft server, anyone with access to it can log on and destroy anyone's buildings. But on Hypixel Skyblock, only the people you create a co-op with have access to the resources, money, and more importantly, building privileges on your island. Now, this immediately reduced the suspect list from the tens of thousands of active players on Skyblock down to these four: Scythe, Elitech, D's Burgers, and Kit Too Late. With this info in mind, I began searching the island for evidence. The first thing I noticed was that the island was not completely destroyed. Some parts were still intact, and it was almost as if whoever had done this was in a rush and wanted to get it over with before anyone logged on and caught them in the act. Some parts, such as the bridge and ground, had clearly been bombed with TNT. More evidence of the use of TNT was blocks of sand suspiciously placed on the island, which are needed for the crafting of TNT of course, and as far as I was aware, we didn't have any sand lying around in chests beforehand. Speaking of chests, they had of course been emptied, and from the best that I could tell, the resources in them that were being used to build the rest of the island had been taken or despawned. Lava and water flooded some areas, and fire was spreading from the exposed lava. One key piece of evidence I gathered was that the fire had not spread very far, meaning whoever had destroyed the island left soon after, since fire only spreads when a player is active. I then checked when everyone had last been online, and unfortunately, it was all around the same time, a few hours ago. But I noticed that the last person that had been online on the island was Scythe. The final piece of evidence I gathered was on the very entrance near the spawn of the island. A bunch of blocks had been placed resembling what I can only assume to be a pair of closed scissors, as well as signs scattered everywhere. Now, most of these signs were empty, but there was one marked with a single name: Kit Too Late. At this point, I logged off the game out of frustration. I'd gathered all the evidence I needed for now, and I was not exactly in the mood to begin trying to fix the island with the culprit still on the loose, who could log back on and bomb it further at any point. I then realized I'd gotten a message from Scythe, dated a few hours ago. Not only had the person destroyed my island, but also taken 19 million worth of items from Scythe's auctions, which was a lot considering this was a relatively new island. Scythe named Kit as the perpetrator, also stating that his motive was revenge for me taking 50 million from him in this video. This, along with a sign with his name on it, all pointed to Kit being the primary suspect, and so, it was time to confront him.
Hello?
Why? Why did you do it, man?
Why did I do what?
Bomb my island.
Oh, we're making jokes now? I didn't bomb
What do you mean my island's literally bombed? It's literally bombed.
Okay, you're just gonna accuse me, right? Why the did I bomb your island, bro?
There's literally a sign with your name on it.
Oh. Well done, bro. Why would I leave my name on the crime scene? That makes no sense. If I was gonna steal...
And wait, I'm not done. And
Okay.
19 mil got stole from auctions, and you said a few days ago you were going to take money from the auctions, and the same thing happened.
You really think, because there were bare auctions, way more for 19 mil. You really think I'd just steal 19 mil?
There were none more for 9 mil. You're capping.
No. Cap. Listen, if I was going to steal 19 million, why not stop there? Why not run that whole up and steal the entire island?
That was all the auctions. Because there was nothing more you could take.
There was definitely more. It was definitely more. I've been seeing bare auctions when I was running dungeons. Easily 50 mil.
You got
Steal that
caught.
whole
He
bitch,
logged
bro.
on. He logged on. You got caught. I don't know.
Okay. All right.
You're
who's
fixing my
accused
island.
then?
You're fixing my island.
I'm not fixing, bro. I ain't break. I'm innocent. I feel like Johnny Depp, bro. I ain't done. Wait. So you're saying, cause there's a sign with my name on, it has to be me.
You know, for once, Kit was right. It didn't make sense that he would write his name on the sign, basically admitting to the crime, only to deny it later. Also, the island receives a notification stating who collected the most recent auctions. I'd assumed that Saif had gotten one such notification telling him Kit had taken the auctions, but on further questioning Saif, I found out that he had not gotten one and only accused him because he also saw the sign. As the most inactive player on the island, it was likely that Kit Too Late was being framed. I was back to square one. Further frustrated, I began looking for more evidence. Saif sent me a picture of the items he had up on the auction that had now disappeared, and I went onto an inventory tracking website to try find one of these items in anyone's inventory, or a sudden influx in cash which they would have gotten from selling the items. There is an option in the game settings for you to be able to hide your inventory so that no one else can see it, but surprisingly everyone on the island had their inventories on and open for examination. I was also looking for any of the blocks I was using to build the island, as the culprit might have picked these up after bombing it or destroying the chests. But, just as my luck would have it, everyone's inventory was clean. No TNT, no building blocks, no auction items. On top of this, they only had a maximum of 2 million in their account, which was nowhere near the 19 million worth of stolen items. The most suspicious item I found was on Burger's inventory. He had an experimentation table. Now, this is not a valuable item, but it is quite an obscure item. It is used by placing it on a player's island, and so it was odd that he had one in his inventory since there's no need to pick one up after placing it down. The reason this was very suspicious is because in the bombing of our island, the experimentation table we had placed had disappeared. It was possible that if Burgers was the culprit, he forgot to clear this out of his inventory since it wasn't clear that he got this from destroying the island. I decided to investigate him further. Now he wasn't online, so I had no way of contacting him, so I tried the next best thing, visiting his private island. But when I visited, I wasn't met with a private island, but instead another co-op. And there was one person online, Skeleton Aura 581. I made sure not to give myself away as one of the co-op members and questioned him about how he knew Burgers, and to my surprise, it was his real-life cousin. Honestly, at this point, I was a bit disappointed as my original intention was to try to get this guy to turn on Burgers and get him to admit if he had done anything. But considering he knew him in real life, this was less of a possibility. I did ask one final question, however, about how much money Burgers had in his account, and his answer was 1 million, which was accurate with the stats tracker website I had checked before. I thanked him for the help and looked around the island for a bit before leaving. At this point, I had questioned everyone on the island apart from one person, Elitech. But first, I visited his island as well. The fact that I was able to visit his private island in the first place was a bit of a red flag, since if he had stolen the items from Saif, he would have had to switch to the other account he was on in order to transfer the items to that account. This was not damning evidence by itself, however, so I didn't think much of it. I messaged Elitech to find out what he was doing during that time. I started by saying that he was the last one online, so he must have seen what happened to the island. However, I knew that Saif had been the last online, and I was simply trying to catch him out in a lie. His answer was believable. He said that he'd been grinding dungeons with a friend on a different profile. I asked him for the friend's name and to let me know if he found out any more information about the situation. I then messaged his friend pretending to be a random person he had done dungeons with, and his alibi seemed to check out. Now that you've heard from everyone's side of the story, I want you to take a guess in the comments for who you think bombed the island, and while you're at it, you might as well subscribe and like this video if you're taking enjoyment in my suffering so far. Look, I'll even give you a countdown. 5, 4... This is pointless because you can just pause the video, and 1. Well, let's see if you were right. With the information we gathered, we can figure out who the perpetrator is. Or, what I should say is, perpetrators. You see, in order to steal the items or coins from a profile, you need 2 people, a mole and a mule. The mole infiltrates the island and gains their trust, and after taking the loot, he transfers the item to the mule. This allows the mole to switch back to his original account, and then the mule transfers the items back to him, usually keeping a percentage for himself. So while everyone still thought it was Kit who did it, it couldn't possibly be him because he has no friends. Also, it can't be two people already on the co-op. This is because if it was, they would have no reason to hide, because in order to kick a person from the co-op, you need a unanimous vote from all the other players. And since they would decide not to vote for each other, there would be no way to kick them from the island once they were found out. This left two possibilities. It was likely either Elitech and Dragon, or Burgers and Skeleton Aura. To determine which pair committed the crime, we have to look at the motives for the players. Why would they destroy an island they helped to build? It didn't make any sense. Unless, of course, they didn't help to build it. Maybe the person who destroyed the island wasn't one of the co-op members. Now, I know I said at the beginning that only co-op members have access to the building privileges on the island, but who has access to their accounts? Well, anyone with access to their computer. This includes friends, family, and perhaps cousins. All of a sudden, the pieces were beginning to fit. I should have seen it from the beginning. The statue of the closed scissors was the same as the one on his island. It was Skeleton Aura. I went back to the stats tracking website, and sure enough, there in plain sight were the items he had taken from Scythe's auctions. I immediately reported my findings to the rest of the co-op members. Honestly, whether Burgers was involved with him or if Skeleton Aura had simply logged onto his account, either way, Burgers was to blame and the reason my island got destroyed, so it didn't take long to convince the other island members, and we soon voted off Burgers from the island. As for what we did with Skeleton Aura, you can't really get banned for scamming people on Skyblock. However, he didn't know that, and we were able to convince him and Burgers that we knew some admins, and if they didn't return the stolen goods, then we would get their accounts wiped. So they reluctantly agreed, and all the items and coins were returned to us. With interest, of course. In terms of the island, it's on its way to a full recovery, and although I still feel like I didn't exactly get justice, what I did get is a video out of it.